Welcome to Earth Space News, the story, for the week of May 15th, 2018. The Earth Space News series focuses upon earthquakes, volcanoes, solar conditions, meteor showers, near-Earth asteroids, comets, and diseases around the world. We will also examine scientific discoveries and how they relate to the world. All of this from a Christian perspective. Today's story, Wrath of the Lamb. This is not an end-of-the-world article. This article is looking at the scripture calling for the great worldwide earthquake and a series of late-breaking earth science discoveries that when pieced together show biblical prophecy potential. The timing and sequence of the events is a question only God can answer. One can draw from the Bible that the time is soon. Be prepared. Get in touch with your Creator. It may be a long-distance call, but Jesus has already paid the price and is waiting for your call. Revelation 6. And I beheld when he had opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood. And the stars of heaven fell unto earth, even as a fig tree casteth her untimely figs, when she is shaken by a mighty wind. And the heaven departed as a scroll when it was rolled up together, and every mountain and island were moved out of their places. And the kings of the earth, and the great men, and the rich men, and the chief captains, and the mighty men, and every bondsman and every free man, hid themselves in dens and in the rocks of the mountains, and said to the mountains and the rocks, Fall on us and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb. For the great day of his wrath is come, and who shall be able to stand? The reference of a great earthquake in verse 12, followed by a dimming of the sun, indicates there is more than just an earthquake that has occurred. It indicates other things are taking place. One such possibility is a volcano or series of volcanoes that spew out volcanic ash in quantities that filter incoming light from the sun and the moon. This filtering reduces the amount of light that penetrates the atmosphere. Particulate matter in the atmosphere can cause the moon to look red or as blood. If it were just the moon that were turned to blood color, a lunar eclipse could be the cause, but light from the sun and the moon being affected is more likely an increase in atmospheric particulate matter. One source would be from volcanoes ejecting material into the atmosphere. Another source could be the impact of one or more asteroids or man-made nuclear detonations. There is a virtual explosion of earth science discoveries that is increasing knowledge about the earth science to include volcanoes and earthquakes. This information is illuminating the possibility of events that will reflect those described in the Bible. Many biblical prophecies have already been validated, fulfilled, so it is prudent to take stock in what may be about to occur. The following dissertation looks at some possibilities. Earthquake. There are a number of tectonic plates, 10 to 20, depending on who is counting. The boundaries of the plates create what is known as a ring of fire. The red lines running around the globe are the plate boundaries that make up the ring of fire. The ring of fire accounts for most of the world's earthquakes and volcanoes. So it is a logical place to start when looking for earthquakes that could shake the world. Looking for megathrust quakes or megaquakes will deliver up a host of sensationalized horror stories by the press about the past due killer quakes. The majority of these stories will be about the American West Coast. Closer examination will reveal an assortment of worldwide megaquakes that are overdue. Revelations is talking about a worldwide event, so we need to look at the megaquake potential all over the world, and it appears that there is evidence to support the potential for a catastrophic event. Here is a small list just for starters. In the U.S., there's California, Washington, Oregon, the New Madrid, the Aleutian Islands, in Canada, all along the British Columbia coast, Mexico, South America, Japan. In Japan we have the Nankai, the Tonankai, the Tokai, Okinawa. In Turkey we have Istanbul. In Naples we have Kathmandu. In Indonesia. A newly released hypothesis by Roger Bilhelm of the University of Colorado and Rebecca Bendrix of the University of Montana discussed the slowing of the Earth's rotation and its impact on major seismic events. The Earth slows down approximately every 32 years. This decrease in speed is extremely small, on the order of about 1.5 milliseconds per day. This slowdown appears to have a historical impact when it comes to earthquakes of magnitude 7 and greater. Whether it is an increase in the larger quakes or an overall increase in all earthquakes is not disclosed. The average number of magnitude 7 or greater earthquakes are 15 to 20 a year, but the rotational slowdown period increases the magnitude 7 or greater earthquakes to 25 to 30 a year. It should be stressed that this period also aligns with the upper 8 and 9 quakes that have been seen in the past. The slowdown historically appears to be a 5-year event, with the 5th year being the most susceptible to large quakes. The current slowdown started 4 years ago. This year, 2018, is the 5th year, and the year where the number of earthquakes 7 and above will increase according to the hypothesis. Japan, on the Ring of Fire, has 4 intersecting tectonic plates. The Nankai Trough is divided into 3 areas: the Nankai, the Tonankai, the Tokai. The Nankai and the Tonankai were hit by major quakes in the late 40s, but the Tokai has not ruptured for 158 years. This area has a history of rupturing every 100 to 150 years and is considered overdue. To the north is the Sagami Trough, which is south and east of Tokyo. The fear is that if the Tokai area ruptures, the other 2 will also rupture. There is a 70% chance of a major quake in the 8 to 9 magnitude within the next 30 years. The quake is expected to generate a 10-meter high, 30-foot tsunami that could reach Tokyo within 5 minutes of the quake. The government expects 82,000 deaths from collapsed buildings, 10,000 deaths from fire, 230,000 deaths from the tsunami, for approximately 323,000 deaths total. The projected cost of this earthquake is estimated at 40% of Japan's gross domestic product. The incapacitated industries would cause a worldwide impact in parts for industries in other countries such as auto, electronic, aircraft, and petrochemical. The Pacific Northwest has a 33% chance of a major rupture in the next 50 years. The California predictions of the San Andreas magnitude 8 earthquakes in the next 30 years is 7%, but the prediction of a 7 or greater earthquake in California over the next 33 years has risen to 75%. In July of 2017, a new theory was introduced. The concept is smaller quakes can trigger larger earthquakes in adjacent faults. Scientists are changing the way they look at earthquakes. A number of small earthquakes can precipitate a large earthquake. Remember the science fiction movies where the big earthquake is preceded by an ominous number of small earthquakes that build up to the big one? The scientific community is now realizing that small earthquakes reflect rising stresses in the area. The scientific community is now realizing that small earthquakes reflect rising stress in an area and can be precursors to a major quake. They have come to the conclusion that earthquake stress travels. One quake can shift stress to another location and trigger another quake. Darefield, New Zealand had a 7.1 magnitude earthquake in 2010. The aftershocks continued for months. The aftershocks slowly worked their way to Christchurch suburbs, where there was a 5.1 magnitude quake. A similar event, but much larger in scale, is the traveling pressure that is building in the Istanbul area in Turkey. The pressure has been traced via a string of earthquakes along a major fault over several years. A similar theory discussed the migration of earthquakes around the Mediterranean area in the biblical times that caused the destruction of some civilizations. New computer models have been completed that track the pressures, including in California. Dutch Sense has predicted a forecasting hypothesis that deep earthquakes create pressure on the plates. He further believes that pressure travels around the world, providing the triggering energy for earthquakes. The major difference is he believes the pressure travels around the world in days, not months. The geologic community does not support his findings, but with all of the changes to their own theories, it may pay to reevaluate his data. A group of New Zealand scientists have discovered a fluidized zone or layer approximately 5 to 6 kilometers thick that lay between the lithosphere and the asthenosphere. The original concept was that the lithosphere was in direct contact with the asthenosphere, which locked the surface of the planet in place. The new revelations can allow the two zones to move independently of each other. This may revitalize the debunked crustal movement theory presented by Charles Hapgood and supported by Albert Einstein. Charles Hapgood provided Albert Einstein with his data that there had been crustal movement in the past. His specific claim was the polar region had physically changed location. He referenced Antarctica, which was once in a tropical zone. Albert Einstein examined the data and subscribed to Hapgood's theory. The geologic community pointed out that the crust was solidly affixed and could not migrate as Hapgood suggested. Yale has recently come up with a theory on what causes quick crustal movement. There is evidence that the polar north and south do shift from time to time. The accepted theory is that the spinning fluid metal at the core of the Earth creates a dynamo which generates a magnetic field. A scientific expedition taking magnetometer readings across the mid-Atlantic ridge found evidence of a polar shift locked in the magma that is extruded from the ridge. There were bands of alternating magma flow with north-aligned magnetic domains, followed by south-aligned magnetic domains. It was repeated over and over again, producing a long history of magnetic directional change. The change occurred every 500,000 years, based on the present speed of the spread of the mid-Atlantic ridge. If the speed of the separation has changed, then this figure could be an error. The most important thing is the change does occur, and there is a lot of speculation of what happens during that change. Scientists have also decided that big earthquakes can come in clusters. That brings us back to the wrath of the Lamb. If a big earthquake can come in localized clusters, can they come in worldwide clusters? Based on the number of prophecies that have come to fruition, it may be a very good time to look at the possibility. It is a known fact that Yellowstone reacts to large earthquakes around the world. Another new theory identifies heat plumes within the mantle that are rising vertically. As the plumes rise, the upper portions cool and break away from the plume and starts moving back toward the center of the earth to be reheated. This action causes a deep earthquake. This raises the possibility of deep earthquakes from these events occurring anywhere in the world. It will take years for scientists to discover and map all of the plumes around the world, so they do not know where the effects could be felt. 200 kilometers, 124 miles below the surface of the earth, a 400-kilometer or 248-mile diameter hotspot, hundreds of degrees C above the normal mantle temperature, is moving slowly upward. It is directly under Vermont, but extends outward to include the states of New Hampshire and Massachusetts. The exact diameter of the hotspot is not known, so it could extend farther outward from Vermont to include more states. The hotspot is smaller than Yellowstone and is expected to take many lifetimes to eventually make its way to the surface. The thermal anomaly has just been discovered, and the actual speed of the upward migration is not known, but it is estimated. Years of study will be required to identify all the parameters of this new discovery. It appears that there may also be older tectonic plates that lie beneath the place we are currently living on. These plates have been shoved under the current plates. These old tectonic plates have earthquakes that can impact the surface from time to time. Rift zones. Another area of earthquakes is the rift zone. A rift zone is an area where tectonic plates are moving apart, and a feature like a graben is formed. The rift can generate large earthquakes and various types of volcanoes. One of the volcanoes is a fissure volcano, or a lava flow where vast quantities of lava are expelled, creating new crust. This happens along the Mid-Atlantic Ridge and can be seen in Iceland, where it breaks the surface of the ocean. There are a number of well-known rift zones around the world. The Mid-Atlantic Ridge, East Pacific Rise, the Baikal Rift Zone, a 1,200-mile-long area in Siberia, West Antarctic Rift, the Rio Grande Rift in southwest U.S., Great Valley Rift System. Northern part is in Jordan Rift Valley. The southern part is in the Red Sea Rift, the East African Rift Zone, the Gregory Rift, and the West Rift or the Alberton Rift. The active rift zone in the United States is the Rio Grande Rift in the southwest U.S. There is a very old rift zone that never quite formed but left a significant scar in the middle of the earth called the New Madron Seismic Zone. This zone has seen some of the biggest earthquakes in the continental America in 1811 and 1812. The Mid-Continental Rift System, or the Kawiniwa Rift, is 1,200 miles long in the center of America, extending from Kansas into the Great Lakes area. There is also a resolidified inactive rift zone in a northwestern Washington state, extending into Canada. There are many other small, semi-formed or fully formed rifts around the world that do not make the big list. Many of these have the potential to deliver a significant geological event to their respective areas. When looking at a worldwide event, they should not be overlooked as a potential contributor to such an event. Volcanoes. Mount St. Helens is a well-known volcano in the United States. It erupted in 1980 in an explosive event that killed 57 people and destroyed a large tract of land. It put ash into the sky that was seen in the red sunsets across America. The mountain was perceived to have a magma chamber directly under the volcano that caused the eruption. A team of scientists recently used explosive to send shock waves into the earth. The speed of the shock waves is measured and paints a picture much like an MRI. The picture painted formed a startling discovery. Not only is there a magma chamber under the mountain as expected, but there is a second, significantly larger magma chamber, 5 to 15 kilometers deep, that feeds the smaller magma chamber under the mountain. This second magma chamber also feeds a small magma chamber for the volcano Indian Heaven. Scientists do not currently have a three-dimensional picture of the size and shape of the magma chamber. They are working to provide the three-dimensional information. It is possible that a significant string of Pacific Northwest volcanoes could be fed by a very large magma chamber extending under the Pacific Northwest. It is not so long ago that a second, significantly larger magma chamber was discovered under Yellowstone. The magma chamber extended for hundreds of miles and contains several times the amount of magma that the original Yellowstone magma chamber holds. Earth science discoveries are coming at an increasing rate. The increase in information is quickly providing a picture that could not even be fathomed a few years ago. Each discovery provides a piece of a puzzle that is still starting to form a picture indicating that the Bible is accurate. Is Mount St. Helens capable of dimming the sun? Not likely. Are there volcanoes that could dim the sun? Absolutely. Could a number of small volcanoes erupting all over the world cause the same effect? Maybe. There are currently 36 smaller volcanoes that are erupting around the world without causing the conditions of Revelations. So it would take more of volcanoes or significantly larger volcanoes to achieve the darkening of the sun and the moon. There is an increase in the number of volcanoes either erupting or showing signs of reawakening around the world. There are small tremors around many volcanoes. Some are naturally occurring events, while others show the possibility of increased activity. A total of 91 new volcanoes have been discovered in Antarctica. This is in addition to the 47 that were already identified. The new study by NASA indicates a heat plume may be contributing to the instability of the western ice sheet. It is also believed that if the ice sheet were to be melted, removed from the volcanoes, they could start to erupt due to the pressure of the ice being removed. The Canary Islands are experiencing additional volcanic activity. One new volcano is in the process of making a new island. Another is showing signs of activity and causing much concern. The Cambrai Via on La Palma has the potential for part of the island to shear off and plunge into the sea. This event may cause a tsunami that would impact Europe and the United States. The volcanoes of Italy are alive and well. There is Etna, which erupts from time to time, Mount Vesuvius, which erupted in 79 AD and obliterated Pompeii. Across the Bay of Naples from Pompeii lies a hidden supervolcano, Campi Flegrei, which is not as well known as Etna or Vesuvius, but much more dangerous. Campi Flegrei appears to be reawakening. This volcano is considered to be among the world's most dangerous volcanoes, the supervolcano. There are 21 supervolcanoes in the world. Long Valley in California, Valles Calderas, New Mexico, Lake Toba in Indonesia, Tapao in New Zealand, Ari Caldera in Japan, Siberian Traps in Russia, Lachur in Germany, Lagarta Caldera in Colorado, Nikakai Caldera in Japan, Mount Aso in Japan, Mount Tambora in Indonesia, Campi Flegrei in Italy, Kadu Mountain, borders of China and North Korea. Just a minor note, 70 miles from North Korea's nuclear test site. Not exactly the best place to be testing nuclear weapons. Whakamura in New Zealand, Snowdonna in the United Kingdom, Lake District in the United Kingdom, Glencoe in Scotland, Cerro Gallen in Argentina, Bennett Lake Volcano Complex in British Columbia, McCaldry Island in New Zealand. Stars falling to Earth. There are two possibilities for the stars falling to Earth. One is the man-made missiles re-entering the atmosphere, such as might be seen in a nuclear exchange. The second is extraterrestrial bodies entering the atmosphere. NASA is providing support for the potential of extraterrestrial bodies impacting the Earth when they announce the discovery of an unknown asteroid belt that is headed toward our portion of the solar system. Have you noticed an increase in the number of asteroids that have been coming close to the Earth in the last 12 months? Some of them were outside the Moon's orbit, but some were between the Moon and the Earth. One is scheduled for May 15th of 2018, passing at a distance of about 125,000 miles. In 2014, NASA discovered a group of asteroids that were moving toward our location in space. The first of the asteroids started arriving in 2017 and will continue until the year 2113. They believe that 400 of these bodies will impact the Earth in this 96-year period. That is a little over 4 impacts a year. Most of the asteroids are about 100 meters in size, or about 300 feet. To give you an idea of the power of a 100-meter size asteroid, Meteor Crater in Arizona was made by a hunk of nickel iron measuring 50 meters in size. It carved out a crater 3,900 feet in diameter and 560 feet deep. There is, however, one large asteroid in this group headed our way and will be threatening us within 5 years. Although this monster is dangerous, the more immediate risk comes from the smaller 100-meter size asteroids, and there are tens of thousands of these headed our way. So in summary, worldwide earthquakes, the ring of fire extending around the world, has demonstrated the ability of producing great earthquakes. A worldwide cluster of megathrust quakes could approach the great earthquake identified in Revelations, darkening the sun as if it were covered by sackcloth of hair and turning the moon as red as blood. The volcanoes around the ring of fire and those supervolcanoes erupting in the appropriate order can eject the amount of ash into the atmosphere to achieve this prophecy. The stars falling to the earth could be accomplished by man-made missiles or asteroids impacting the earth. Either could raise enough ejecta to cause the sun and moon to become dim. The heaven departed as a scroll when it's rolled together. This is unknown. This is something that we will have to see. Every mountain and island were moved out of their places. The last major Japanese earthquake moved portions of the island 13 feet from their original locations. This may or may not meet the requirement to move the islands and mountains from their locations. When discussing a worldwide earthquake, the likes of which has never been seen by man and possibly impacts by asteroids, the Earth axis could change, which would move all land masses out of their present locations. Believers are not privy to exactly how or when, but they are privy to a certainty of things that will happen. So again, I urge you to be prepared. Get in touch with your Creator. Accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. It may be a long-distance call, but Jesus has already paid the price and is waiting for your call. This ends the Earth Space Stories for the week of May 15th, 2018. Have a blessed week.